Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. We can see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you can start. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So very nice to have all of you. It shows the amount of love you have for Dr. Ulhas, Vaman, Wagh. I have a couple of statements to make about Ulhas Wagh. May I know who is on the line? There is somebody is asking something. Dr. Wagh is, for me personally, I felt he is a very unique person. In the sense, he is a very ordinary man, led an ordinary life, but did something very big. Like we here, Baba built Atomic Research Center or Space Center like that. I don't think Ulhas Wagh is anyway less by building this national facility for animal tissue culture collections. He has brought in, something which you have to go and see to believe what it is giving. And his life is so interesting. I find that anybody with a first paper in nature as a MSc student should have become a professor right away, I feel, at that time. But he's so humble, he never mentioned about his nature paper when I have known him. But when I read that paper of his, I could quite understand why his paper was accepted in Nature at that time. Because at that time, we didn't know that all the cells in the DNA, all the cells have the same DNA and it's constant, what they call as C value. And amount of DNA may vary, but within one species, the amount of DNA in each cell is constant. I think it was and he, for the first time, showed it in insects, because there was a bit of controversy that in insects, it is not constant. I think that paper, which is a very short paper, but I must say, it was a very, I just couldn't believe that 1959, as an MSc student, Dr. Wagh had published it. So this is the first impression I got, that look, how come such a humble man never mentioned about this? And certainly that is the hallmark of the man who strongly believed in nothing very great. That's the typical of what I have known Dr. Wagh to be. Number two, what I remember of him is when everybody was entitled to buy a car as director of the institute, he bought only auto rickshaw. And I still remember he coming in the auto rickshaw and coming and going in the department. And, in India, if you go to any bureaucrat, the day he gets a car and the car comes to pick him up from the house, all the neighbors know that so-and-so is a very important person. But he made sure that by coming in auto, he made sure that, nobody thinks he is very important. That is another humbleness. Third, the amount of areas which we are going to hear from Ramesh Bhonde also. But I must say, kind of chromosome studies he did with fluorescent probes in 60s is amazing. Fluorescence was a very new technique at that time. And he was very upset that the work he did with Kasperson, which he tried to publish in Nature, was rejected. And he was very upset. So he felt, Nature is not a very good journal to publish. So that was his view. But he was so strong about it. And I'm sure as we go along, there's a lot of speakers who want to share about him. For me personally, I feel that Dr. Wagh is no way less than some of the great nation builders. And he stands as tall as each one of them who built the country. And certainly Dr. Ulhas Wagh will remain in the history books of that. It's very, when I came to know that his wife, who is the, behind every successful man, that's a very nice wife who has always stood by them. I think here is the lady who stood by him, supported him. And that's why probably, he lived more than 90 years, because he could lead a good family life as well as a good research life. It's very unfortunate that she passed away 20 days before his death, which again came as a shock. But that shows the bonding both of them have had. And, he set a standard of what is a humble human being. Be simple, but thinking high. High thinking has been his hallmark. And as Bhonde and myself were chatting, he's a very inspiring person, and he left for, and he will give beautiful ideas. So he is inspiring, he is very good at ideating, and left for others to implement whatever he said. So with these few words, I hand over now to Dr. Bhonde.
Kannan, just this Rajini Bisay is not able to join. There is some
now
problem.
she has just joined.
Join, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, please, Dr. Bhonde.
Yeah, so actually, I will just go through the journey of Dr. Wagh as a historical, because he always used to discuss with me earlier what he did, how he came up to this level. And I joined in 1975 as a JRF. So I know Dr. Wagh in three capacities: as my teacher, or my guide, my mentor from 1975 to 78. Then from 81 to 86 onwards, he used to say, "You are my colleague, now you are no more a student." And then when NCCS was established, he was my boss, the director of the NCCS. So in three parts, in the three phases, I know Dr. Wagh. So he started his career in Institute of Science, Bombay. And this is where he did his Ph.D. with Dr. Inamdar. And one of our NIV colleague, Dr. Gokte, was also with him. Even Dr. Bhise used to go there, and Dr. Bhise and Dr. Gokte, everybody knew Dr. Wagh from the Institute of Science, which was a common point of meeting that time. And then he was transferred in the Institute of Science, then he was transferred to the CRI, that one it is called as ICRC, Indian Cancer Research Institute, and then it becomes CRI, Cancer Research Institute, and now ACTREC. So he always used to say whenever he moves, the name of the institute changes. Same thing happened when he came to NIV. He joined NIV and I also joined NIV as a virus research center, because it was just a VRC. And later on, it became National Institute of Virology. Same thing happens about the NCCS also. So he moved, and along with him, I also moved. And his journey was started from National of Virology, where actually we learned all the techniques through him directly, what we called as Gurukul. He used to take us by hand and teach us all the techniques. And this was, Dr. Kannan was talking about the Nature paper, amounts of deoxyribonucleic acid in silk glands. So he started, actually the tissue culture, entire thing was inculcated in us right from that washing, packing, sterilization, the concept of sterility. And at that time when there were no use of antibiotics, no laminar flow hood, and no gloves, no mask, no head masks, nothing. And still we used to get beautiful colonies of cells and no contamination whatsoever. So this is how he used to taught us. And I really learned many things from him, and how the cells behave. Then he used to tell us how the cell look like under microscope, whether it is a sick cell. So it is something like a clinical examination of the cells. Now, these are some of the contributions which he made right from his ICRC time, that he developed some cancer cell lines, which was called ICRC strain. Then he also developed one cell line in VRC, which was called as VRC4 cell line from the human amnion. So at that time in 1974, he used the human amnion, which is, we know that the discarded tissue now, which is very important for stem cell cultures and so on. Then he established another kind. He was also interested in biophysics, because which was not our subject at all, our totally biology as such. But he has worked on nuclear magnetic resonance studies on human malignant cells at that time in 75. Then he has also worked with this proton spleen lattice relaxation time, then laboratory investigation in conjunctivitis, Bombay. So I was associated with it at that time when we used to isolate the conjunctivitis virus in a tracheal organ cultures. Because when I joined with Dr. Wagh, actually two persons were there, Dr. Jain Chiplankar, myself. So they used to call as two cubs of Dr. Wagh, JMC and RRB. And then there was also another lady called as Nirmal Tyagi. She was also PhD student, and the MSc student was Rajini Bisay. So all were, our was a group, and then each one was given the topics. So Chiplunker chose on the chromosomes, which was the favorite topic of Dr. Wagh, cytogenetics and chromosome, and he used to study the effect of viruses on chromosome. And I moved to the organ cultures because he said organ cultures are more closer to the in vivo situations, and then I started with tracheal organ cultures. I remember we struggled almost 1.5 years to see the ciliary activity of the tracheal cultures. Finally, I could do it with rabbit trachea, and then once I see it under microscope, we did on all the tracheal vertebrates from, because being zoologists, we had an access to Calotis versicolor, then we had access to all kinds of birds and also the human fetuses, which we used to get from the Sassoon hospitals. So these are, and this is the, that time VRC, Virus Research Center. This is a photograph which shows, and here is Dr. Wagh. Then this is Dr. Chiplunkar, and this is me. So there are, that Dr. Pauri is there, then Dr. Gupta was there, Dr. Govardhan was there. So this was the taken, and from that time onwards, actually we are tuned to conduct the cell culture courses for different kinds of people, right from JRF, SRF, mid-career scientists, veterinarians, and so on. So that culture of organizing a training program came from that. We also organized one training program for Armed Forces Medical College, and those were so nicely trained that, and at that time he used to say that whenever you transfer anything, never keep the cork of the bottle out on the table, because everything that you have must be non-sterile. So you have to keep everything in hand. And then during the valedictory function, one of the army people said that even if I drink alcohol, I have the this in my hand. So I never kept it aside. And these are some of the organ cultures which we did that time for placental organ culture, mouse organ culture. So these are some of these. And actually we said one paper was sent to Indian Journal of Medical Research and also Indian Journal of Experimental Biology, that is virus susceptibility of reptiles to mammals, something like that. And then it came back, and then I said we will have to, something we have to do, and he himself said that Dr. Bhonde, you are very good at naming the people, so, or naming the titles. So at least you can change the title, and we changed the title that tracheal or non-respiratory viruses support the tracheal organ cultures support the replication of non-respiratory viruses, and it got accepted in British Journal of Experimental Pathology, and that was a great news. And Dr. Pauri put it on the main gate of the NIV, because so far such paper was not published. So these are some of the glimpses. And then he has also worked on fruit extracts, Phyllanthus, on osteoarthritis after he's moving to Irsha actually. And then these are again some of these shots at that time when we took, I think this is at the NIV outdoor. So here you can again see Dr. Wagh, Dr. Chiplunkar, myself, and the entire group of tissue culture cell biology. So that time, and Dr. Mendis is here, then Dr. Pawar is there, all technical staff, and everyone was there. And this is the entire, it was the entire strength of the tissue culture cell biology. And in one of the meetings of the Scientific Advisory Committee, they upgraded the entire section because of the wonderful work that was carried out by Cell Biology and Tissue Culture, TCCB as we used to call it. And this is how the formation of NCCS began. In 1982, Dr. Wagh, Dr. Modak Sharad proposed a DST ICMR project under the germplasm conservation, and that time it was NBTB, National Cell Repository Research and Training Center. So the original idea was NCR and RTC was the project.
Yeah, you can even speak on your mobile. You can get onto the video there.
Can you see me now on my mobile? I'm on.
Okay, I'll just check up. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that was sanctioned. Then it became then Department of Zoology gave us the first infrastructure to build up these. Dr. Wagh was the officer in charge. Then we moved to Jopasana and Jidnasa. Then the name was changed to NTCF, and finally it was changed to NCCS when Dr. Mishra took over. So these are some of the glimpses. This is the entire Dr. Wagh family with NCCS core group. It was taken in the Jopasana. So Dr. Purab is there, Dr. Chiprankar, Dr. Vani, myself, Lalita Lebai, then Vajanti Kale, then Shiras, Dr. Majumdar, Dr. Patwale, Nandakumar, and Deshpande. And he has not only worked on viruses and several areas he has covered, including malaria. He was the first person to cultivate Malaria falciparum, and he went to Bangkok for training under Trager, William Trager, and he brought the malaria culture. So he always used to say, Cancer Research Institute has given a vaccine on leprosy, and Virus Research Center or the NIV has worked on malaria. So you can really do anything if you want to do, if it is on the right track. Then, and here these are all the students, Dipshika, Supriya, and all other students are there with Dr. Wagh. So he was in fact a family. I remember that when I wrote my thesis at that time, there was no computer, only a typewriter. And I used to write the thesis on the dining table of Dr. Wagh, and Dr. Mrs. Wagh used to give us the beautiful dishes. So I still maintain that as an organ culture. I maintain myself. Then this is the Silver Jubilee, the celebrations when Dr. was felicitated by Balaram, and these are all the directors, Dr. Wagh, Dr. Mishra, then and this was Mashelkar and these other persons. Then this is my favorite, that is the 3 generations of guide. So Dr. Wagh, I was the first student of Dr. Wagh. Dr. Anand Hardikar is the first student of mine, and Mugdha Joglekar was the first student of Hardikar. So these are 3 generations of guide, and this was taken when I retired from NCCS in 2009. And finally, we recently we lost Dr. Wagh. So a wonderful person, a wonderful gentleman, and he used to come with me on a scooter. I mean, he has down-to-earth person. He never felt that I am going with my student on a scooter to NIV. And invariably, while coming back, he used to ask me, "Are you going straight home? Then only I will accompany you. If you are going somewhere else, I will go by auto or I will go by something else." I think that is all what I want to say about Dr. Wagh. And really, I feel that what I am today is all because of his training, and complete personality development is done by his training. I accompanied him even to Ahmedabad when we transferred the Korea culture technology.
Next speaker.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think I have finished. Now you can have the next person. Shall I stop?
Now she's able to hear. Okay. Now, thank you, Dr. Bhonde, for talking the journey with Dr. Ulhas Wagh. I think it's very, very interesting journey which you shared. Now, may I request Dr. Padma Shastri to tell her journey with Dr. Wagh, because she has a lot of beautiful memories. So over to you. Can you, Bhonde, can you remove your slide?
Yeah, I just checked that. Yeah.
I don't have any slides, so it's okay.
Okay. Please speak. Yeah. Okay, Padma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, friends. First of all, Professor Kandan, thanks a million to you for making me a part of this program and giving me an opportunity to talk about my impressions and experiences with Dr. Wagh. I joined NFATCC on 1st of January 1990, worked with Dr. Wagh directly, he as a director, for 5 years. And even after his retirement, our association continued in various capacities in different projects or issues that we were talking about. And so I can say that what I'm going to share today is not just on the 5 years that I worked with him, but it is going to be 30 plus years. Now, one of the first memories that comes to my head is after joining, I went to Dr. Wagh and told him, "Sir, I have 2 projects that I have in my mind. So when can I start the experiments? These are the chemicals I need. This is the equipment," a big list I gave him. He told, "Shastri, wait, we have only a building here. You cannot start your experiments, and that will take some time." I told, "Sir, what do we do till then?" "Well, we start building up the facility. We start getting the equipments. We start having culture labs organized. All this will happen. And then you can start your experiments." So initially I thought, "Hey Ram, kahan aake fas gayi main?" And next 6 months, 1 year was a great period. I mean, a lot of learnings went in during this period. What do you require for an institute building? What do you need for your lab setting? All those fundas which were totally zero were really enriched during that period. And let me tell you, looking back, I wonder how many students who join now as Scientist D really get this opportunity to know about what institute building is and what are the factors that go, what are the main, what are the challenges and limitations, on how many will get the opportunity. So looking back, I feel very blessed that I was a part of the formative stage of the NFATCC. Now, during the early stages, Dr. S. Ramachandran, the Secretary of National Biotechnology Board, NBTB, used to visit us. And during one such meeting, so Dr. Wagh, myself, and he were there. And Dr. Wagh had not arrived. So Dr. Ramachandran made a polite conversation with me. And then he asked me, what are you doing? I told him, no, we have yet to start working. And during that conversation, he made some statements which I want to share with you all. He said, Dr. Padma, don't worry, your work will start. Don't worry. But what he said was about Dr. Wagh was, you're all very lucky to have a director like Ulhas. He is dedicated, determined, committed, hardworking, sincere, and all that. And I'm sure under his leadership, NFATCC will go a long way, and which was not wrong at all. And I didn't know Dr. Wagh not only well, I didn't know him at all. But this is what Dr. Ramachandran said. And I had the proof for this, in about some little, maybe a year or so later, Dr. Wagh went to ATCC to get cell lines. He got the cell lines. After arriving at the Pune airport at 2 a.m. in the morning, he comes to NFATCC, deposits the cell lines there, we receive it, and he goes back home afterwards. And believe me, at 9:30 in the morning, Dr. Wagh is back in his office. I mean, this was the dedication, the commitment, the hard work, absolutely no rest at all. And let me talk about some of the other aspects of his personality. Dr. Wagh's ideas, concepts, perceptions were all much ahead his time. And Dr. Wagh, he being UV, Ulhas V, he used to be thinking on the frequency of UV range. And we would be on the other end of the spectrum, absolutely unmatched frequencies. I do not know how he tolerated us sometimes, I feel. And many of the concepts that he developed and he put into action, I will just talk very briefly about those. My first project, which ultimately started working, was on using cell cultures as an alternative to animal experimentation. And when we started working on that, I was quite fascinated. Oh, we have got cell cultures in our own lab was a great thing for me. So the model that I used was using it for anti-tetanus antibodies. The optimization, standardization was done at NFATCC. And then I told Dr. Wagh, sir, I have to do the validation for this. So can we collaborate with Serum Institute of India? I know Dr. Jadhav, Suresh Jadhav. So can we do that? He said, yes, of course. And full support. I worked for 4 to 5 weeks at Serum Institute. We got the validation done. And the outcome was an invited article in vitro toxicology, which was really well appreciated. Now, there are 2 points that I would like to make in this project. Firstly, the industry academia, or let me put academia first, academia industry collaborations. We talk about it in a big way now. And now people talk about it in the way that academia and industry are 2 strong pillars of economy and how there should be a robust collaboration and all that. And this is something what we did partly at NFATCC, and validations at Serum Institute was one of the first industry, academia industry collaborations. The second part is about the use of animals in experimentation. And now we know there is all around the world, there is in toxicology, there's a strong push towards replacing animal experiments with alternative medicine, alternative methods. There's a total shift to animal-free experimentation, as they call it in biomedical research. And now there's a deadline put of 2025 to see different countries and the regulatory bodies are trying to draft different policies to see how they can do away with animals. And this is something we had done at that point using cell cultures for animal experimentation. Of course, now we should admit that there are more sophisticated techniques, there's microchip and iPSCs and all are being used for it. So this is something which 1990s, which not many people must have thought of and done actually, was something which was really commendable. Another part, which is a buzzword and which has got a lot of attention, is translational medicine, translational research. Myself and my younger colleague, Dr. Rajendra Damle, worked on neuroblastomas. We collaborated with AFMC, Armed Forces Medical College Hospital, and Dr. Colonel Ranga Rao there asked us, can you help us in standardizing the dose of the drug for the child that we are treating? Neuroblastomas are childhood tumors. So we said we will try, and luckily we had a cell line that was derived from a patient whose clinical history was very similar to the patient. So to make the long story short, we got the LD50A doses, IC50, we went back and they treated the young boy with that medicine. And after 1 month, Dr. Wagh gets a call from Colonel Ranga Rao saying that the patient is much better now. And the happy part was that he survived for 6 to 7 months, and when his lifespan was only 3 weeks. Now, what we talk about from the bench to bedside, or the translational medicine, this was a classic example of that. And this was something which was very well appreciated, though it did not go to a great publication and all that. Another great asset, I should say, for Dr. Wagh was his power of visualization. Dr. Wagh used to have great meetings with our architect, Mr. Shirish Beri, come to us and sit with all those maps. And our knowledge was so limited, even if we kept the maps upside down, we wouldn't know what it is. And during one such meetings, he said, can you look at these maps and the what you call drawings? And looking at the drawings, he said, where do you think the director's office should be located? And at that time, the director's office, none of us could think about it. And he asked different people, and I'll tell you about myself. And I showed him one place. He said, this place, do you know that the director's office is the interface between the institute and the rest of the world? And you should portray that dignity. And you are showing something which is close to animal house and toilets. I told him, no, sir, I'm extremely sorry. I didn't think about it. And after many years, when the building was ready, the director's office was there. We got many eminent visitors over there. They used to be they would be very highly impressed with the director's office. And those of you who have seen the director's office would know, when you open the curtains, in the backdrop, you see the hills. And in rainy season, the halki si barish, and you see the little waterfalls there. And you see the cool atmosphere, which was really a great scene. And sometimes you would have the luxury of even seeing a peacock over there. So that was really great. And only I wondered, how did Dr. Wagh, looking at those paper plans and looking at those diagrams, visualize that a scene from the director's office should be like this? And I think only Dr. Wagh could do that, I think. So that was a great asset, the power of visualization. Talking about Dr. Wagh and not touching upon his sense of humor and wit is not fair at all. And let me give a couple of anecdotes here. When I came to Pune, I had this eye allergy problems, watering of eyes and reddening of eyes and all. So once I went to Dr. Wagh with such problem, and I told him, sir, I have eye problem. I will not be able to attend the meeting today. And Dr. Wagh looked at me and said, Shastri, I don't think you are the one who has eye problem. I felt very bad when I'm telling him I have eye problems. Why is he not believing me? And then he's perhaps read the dumb expression on my face. And then he said, Shastri, I'm talking about the capital I problem. You don't have that eye problem. I'm not talking about the eyes or your aankhon ka problem. Of course, he was very considerate and he excused me from the meeting. So it takes time to realize what he was telling. The other other anecdote was when Dr. Wagh still knew.
Padma, 1 minute. Yeah. I will just say, since you opened that topic, once he called me in his cabin and immediately he told me, Dr. Bhonde, you have to protect me from this person. I said, why? He said, because he is Wagh Mare.
That's really, and only you. And the second one is also very hilarious. We were just sitting in the little lighter moments and asked, sir, is Mrs. Wagh a working woman? He said, yes. Where does she work? I asked him. He said, she works for a company called Wagh and Company, Wagh and Family. And she works full time there. And before I could act dumb and ask him where is this company located, I realized what he was saying. This was the respect he had for Mrs. Wagh and for the women. I mean, that was really, really praiseworthy.
Okay. Right. You're on mute. I can't hear you. Kannan, you are on mute.
Kannan, you are on mute.
I'm so sorry. Sorry. Padma, are you through?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing some of the very important anecdotes in your life, and I'm sure it was really nice to hear that. Now, may I request, Anand Hardikar, he has now such a calls as a PhD scholar. Over to you, Anand.
Thanks so much. First of all, thank you for having me, and really honored to spend my 5-10 minutes on telling you about my impressions about Professor Wagh. So I don't have any slides. I think Professor Bhonde is only the person who always has a story to tell with its slides. So what I thought I would tell you is there was the first time I came to meet him was around 30 years back when I was a bachelor student, first year bachelor student at Beri College in Pune, and I had written a letter saying that I'm a first year bachelor student. I don't have anything else to do in my summer vacation. Can I come and wash test tubes in your institute? And I wouldn't expect any director to entertain such kind of letters, but he wrote back to me saying, come and visit me at such a time. I still remember sitting in the Jopasna building, having this really older kind of director. I mean, it was a different kind of relationship, I think, since then. When I first met him, and I know that Professor Shastry and Professor Bhonde have a lot of association and a lot of stories to tell, but I think it doesn't take, you don't need to have a lot of time with someone like Professor Wagh to have lasting impressions of what this person was. The first thing when I was interested in research, and I think he played quite a lot of role in shaping the careers of me and several like me. He made it very clear that research is not something that is a 9-to-5 job, and you should only do it if you have passion. Those were the first few things, but I was kind of thinking like, oh, he's someone who wants me to work all the time, and we know how PhD students can be cheap labor, but he was absolutely telling me the opposite. He said, Anand, what's really important is that research is not a 9-to-5 job. It's a 24-hour job. And the best researchers are those who keep on thinking about research even when they go home. And he said, when you learn about cryopreservation, think about cryofreezing your dosa batter. And like, can you use your dosa batter for 2 months? And he said, I can. And you could just freeze it and you thaw it at some other time and use it. So we still joke about it, even now, where we call our freezer as the time machine, where lots of things go in the time machine and come out back in the microwave. So yeah, I mean, that's where it began. Then I remember that when I was fortunate to get into a PhD program with Professor Bhonde at NCCS, and I had an opportunity to go to Belgium for a short training. It was Professor Wagh who called me and said, Hardikar, just remember that as you know, we don't get a lot of reagents here very routinely. I mean, we are talking about 97, 99. And it was still a problem getting reagents very easily back in India. And he said, just please remember to buy anything if you want. And he was someone who, I mean, I just kept wondering how someone at that level and that stature could even have time to think about me and say, if you need anything, just be sure to buy it and get all the receipts and everything, and we'll see how to get it. But that tells you how an ideal director he was, apart from being a great human being. The other thing and the last thing which I would like to finish by is saying that this is something which is really hard to teach, but he was someone who taught me humility and modesty, and we always see this, and I think Professor Wagh is an excellent example of how we have seen. You know, there's a nice Sanskrit Subhashit which talks about how people should be, and I think it was probably written for him, but it tells you that one should try and be like nature is. Like if you see a beautiful flower, the trees blossom with flowers and they stand kind of erect with pride. But as soon as they bear the fruit, they bow down, and it kind of speaks about how a person should be. And I've never seen like Professor Wagh boasting of something, or I've never ever seen him. He was always modest, and like the clouds that are laden with moisture always sail lower, or like the fruits that are the most ripest kind of mangoes kind of will be much would bow down. He was someone who always respected others and respected anyone's opinion, and that's something I think which is very rare to find. So really glad to be here again and be with you, and thanks for giving me the time to speak.
Thank you, Anand. You know, Dr. Eddy wants to leave a bit early. So may I request Dr. Eddy to say what he wishes to convey as a tribute? Dr. Eddy.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kannan. You know, friends of Dr. Wagh, it's nice to see all of you. You know, my name is Eddy Sayeed, a former student of Dr. Wagh at the University of Pune at the Zoology Department. I'm currently working as an executive director at the International AIDS Vaccine Institute in the US, and we are involved in the manufacturing of HIV vaccines, COVID vaccines, and vaccines against dreadful diseases like Ebola, Marburg, Lassa fever. There goes a saying, everything in life is associated, may not be obvious initially, but in the future it becomes evident. You know, I've been connected with the family through several associations. Initially, it was with Yaduraj, who was my classmate at Loyola's in 1970. We were classmates then, and then with Ashwin, who was also at Loyola's. And later on with Arundhati and her daughter in 2005 when they visited us in the US. You know, my association with Dr. Wagh goes back to 1985, when I secured admission into the first batch of MSc Biotechnology at the University of Pune. The field of viruses and vaccines fascinated me, and I opted to specialize in animal tissue culture and applications. 1985 to 87 was the hallmark years in my life. Little did I know that that was going to be shaping my career for the future. I consider myself extremely privileged to be trained by the father of tissue culture in India himself, as most of us fondly called him. Despite his numerous successes and being a founder member of the NTCF, NFATCC, or the NCCS, what he enjoyed the most was spending time with his students and share his knowledge and experiences. When it came to the subject of tissue culture, he was a perfectionist and held very high standards. He impressed upon us the importance of being vigilant and paying attention to minute details in the way one prepared one's materials, the importance of building a facility, washing, packaging, sterilization, the technique of tissue culture, and observing the culture one was nurturing. Even a minutest slippage would have a disastrous consequences. Reflecting back today, these were hidden lessons in life. The importance of being disciplined and attention to details, dedication to work, and more importantly, exhibiting simplicity and humility as one goes about doing one's business in one's life and in the profession. Dr. Wagh, thank you so much for your dedication and devotion to the field. We'll always remember you fondly. I wish the family well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eddy. I see that Dr. Rajini Bisay is there. We all have known her and her husband, Professor A.N. Bhise. In fact, before I hand over to Dr. Rajini Bisay, I remember once A.N. Bhise landed up in the department and he gave his lecture and all. Then he wanted to see Dr. Wagh and he wasn't there in the department. He said, no, without seeing Dr. Wagh, I'm not going. So I'm going to his house. I'll see him. Then only I'll go back to Bombay. So over to you, Dr. Rajini Bisay. Dr. Rajini?
Hello.
Hello, please. Yeah, thank you. Hello.
You're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. You're okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I did not the news that Wagh had passed away. And I thought that a part of my life is gone. Because we have so many memories, I mean, innumerable memories of him. I was not there actually when he joined Cancer Research Institute, then called Indian Cancer Research Center, to help Dr. Kamal Randive to establish the first tissue culture lab in India. And after, I think he had joined a few years later, Dr. Bhise, later to be my husband, joined the institute. And what I remember is that Dr. Bhise was also at Institute of Science in Mumbai. He was doing his master's degree, and Dr. Wagh was finishing his PhD. So that's how the relationship developed. And I remember innumerable times my husband saying that, oh, Ulhas is my friend, philosopher, and guide. So for us, that is what Dr. Wagh was. We would go to Jopasana many times and we would have discussions. I'm not a tissue culture person at all, but then I wanted to do some work on using tracheal cells to look for the effect of tobacco that the workers in tobacco factories inhale, because that is the first target of tobacco load. And then I went to the Virology Institute, and I remember Dr. Bhonde helping me to showing me actually how to make organ cultures of tracheal cells. And I used to carry my own hamsters from the lab to Pune, and then we would work. So that was a great time, I think. Many of you have spoken about Dr. Wagh's virtues and his work. I think something that's not mentioned is about the work he did in Sweden. I forget the name of the scientist with whom he worked, but I remember that I think sometime in 1971 they returned from US, and we were leaving from Sweden, and we were leaving from USA in December. It was very cold. So Mrs. Wagh gave me her nice woolen coat to wear, and of course my son was given a proper suit because it would be very cold, and there maybe it would really be very, very cold in December. So after my husband passed away, that's Dr. Bhise passed away, we would have conversations often. And one day he said, "But Rajini, don't worry, because sometimes I would be depressed." And he said, "But you know that Raju was never not interested in DNA." I said, "What?" And that was in my mind. You know what? Dr. Wagh says he was actually interested in RNA. And those were my initials before I got married. Such a lovely sense of humor he had. I'm going to miss him a lot. Just before we left, I don't remember in 71 whether it was Yaduraj was born, and it was, there were earthquakes going on in Mumbai, and still we went to his house in Grand Road to see the little baby. He was in a cradle. So many memories, and all the good food that Mrs. Wagh served, and the things she made. I think we have been extremely fortunate to have a friend like him, and I think we ought to celebrate his life, the way he lived, and the way he even chose to leave all of us. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhonde, for asking me to say a few words here. Anyway, thanks all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajini Bisay, for joining and sharing your warmth feelings about Dr. Wagh. Now, may I request Professor Saroj Ghaskadbi, who always regretted why she did not join him in NCCS whenever I talk to her. So over to you, Saroj.
Thank you, Professor Kannan. I met Dr. Wagh first in 1983 when I joined University Department of Zoology, Professor Modak's lab for my PhD. And I was given a topic of human aging using cell culture. I didn't know ABC of either aging or cell culture. So he said you have to go to NIV, spend 6 months in Dr. Wagh's lab and learn cell culture. That's how I landed in NIV and met Dr. Wagh. And what a pleasant surprise it was on the background of Department of Zoology, University of Pune. So in that lab, he taught me tissue culture from scratch. In 1983, believe me, doing tissue culture was very, very difficult because no disposable plastic were available, no media available. Even the serum was not available. Goat serum had to be prepared. Preparing goat serum used to be a big ritual in tissue culture lab of Dr. Wagh. And all his technical staff was so well trained in all these activities. I learned washing, packing, sterilization from Pawar, whom I'm seeing just now here. Meat was taught to us by Sagar, even freezing of the cells. Cell culture, primary was taught by Mendes. I remember them all of today because whatever I learned is from them. They were so good and so loyal to their work and dedicated to their work that always maintained a very good atmosphere in the tissue culture lab. And the confidence I got of doing tissue culture, I feel any corner of the world, if I'm given a set of burners and minimum things to do cell culture, I will be able to do primary culture even today. After completing 6 months of my training of tissue culture, one more thing I must mention here, that the project, as I told you, on human aging, very ambitious project. And what we had decided is to develop cell lines from the human fetus, which we would get from Sassoon Hospital. Now, getting fetus in 1980 itself was very difficult. And if we got, it was any time of the day. Early morning, 6:30, late night, 10:30, any time. But I still remember Dr. Bhonde and Dr. Wagh, both of them would accompany me to the tissue culture lab at NIV and all three of us together would prepare primary cultures out of those organs from human and fetuses. So they had a tremendous dedication to work, and I learned a lot from them. After finishing the training, I came back to university to pursue my PhD. And soon, even Dr. Wagh came to University Department of Zoology, where he integrated then NFATCC. He was there all the time in the department, used to be very busy, no doubt in NFATCC work, but still find a time to come up in the lab, talk to us, and we would feel so free to talk anything that we wanted and discuss with him. He then, of course, moved to Ulhas. Then our meetings became a bit infrequent, but he again came back to NCCS. And we could meet him more frequently than when he was at Ulhas. And we all see today that NCCS was built so nicely under his leadership. He was a person who was ahead of times. He laid a very strong foundation for cell culture work, organ work, culture work, because of which today so many scientists in the country are benefiting. Now, he wanted to develop the facilities similar to ATCC, because getting a cell line that time from ATCC was a nightmare. It was not possible, very expensive. And that's where he struggled to develop NFATCC. He was a great visionary, enthusiastic, and a very, very supportive leader, a role model of how, in fact, a leader should be. He cared everyone who worked with him, from his driver, from his technical staff, administrative staff, students, and scientists. The beauty was he would walk anywhere and talk to anyone, anytime. There was no problem at all. Or even anyone could walk in his office, director's office, and talk to him, anything, personal, academic, otherwise. In 1995, after completing his tenure as a director at NCCS, he then moved to Irsha, and then again from there to Rasayani, and then he continued working. Our meetings became really not very frequent, but I was surprisingly shocked that in 2014, when I underwent a major health issue, had to undergo a surgery, when he came to know about that, he came all the way to meet me to the university and find out how I'm doing, how is my health, do I need any help? And I was very much touched by this gesture. I have a lot of sweet memories of Dr. Wagh with me, and I will always cherish them. Thank you very much, Professor Kannan, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Saroj, for sharing your personal moments. Now, may I request Dr. Yogesh Bendale, who has been associated with him. He himself is a very multifaceted person who has worked on a lot of areas. So over to you, Dr. Yogesh Bendale.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kannan. Thank you, organizers, for selecting me to express my feelings with Dr. Wagh. Actually, I am completely and totally odd man out in this meeting of all the great scientists and wise people. So actually, I am an Ayurvedic physician, and I met Dr. Wagh first time in my life at the meeting held at Vaidya Khadiwale's residence. And that time, Dr. Wagh has asked one question which completely stunned me, that how come somebody asked a question like this? I was very much impressed by the question, in fact. And then I met Dr. Wagh separately after the meeting. And then I asked him that I want to meet you for some more discussions. And I keep on meeting with him for certain things. And we started Rasayani Biologics at that time, which was the completely new drug development kind of a company in India. It's a Western business model. We don't have the revenue generation model. So we were fairly dependent on Department of Biotechnology and external funding, private funding, venture capital, and so on. And when we kept on meeting in first 2 or 3 meetings, when I sounded him that I want an advisor like him, knowing my own limitations and knowing the limitations of Ayurvedic people, that unfortunately our people has not created the substantial credibility across the various verticals of science. So he politely said that I have a severe back pain, so I don't think I can be able to help you. And I was very disappointed there, but I was desperately wanting him to be on our advisory board. So I said, if you kindly permit me, then I can treat your back. So he liked that answer, and we started, I became his Vaidya. And till then, the journey started. And then when he realized, once he visited as a first time, let me see what you guys are doing. And then he could see that there are young scientists and there are good people working for a good cause. Then he decided to help us, and then he never turned back. I have seen Dr. Wagh writing me at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning saying that now I am getting older. So my memory is getting, reducing day by day. So I would like to send you email before I forget. This was related to our today afternoon's discussions and so on. So it was, he was rather more involved in our projects than we guys are. So when we started with the cell line research, and we get disappointed saying that, no, we are not getting, Dr. Padma Shastri has witnessed each and every moment, because she is also with us more than 10, 15 years about now. So we are not getting the typical IC50 or viability studies. We have failed, and this is, this drug cannot be anymore taken further for anti-cancer, this thing. But I was always sharing this with Dr. Wagh, that, but now with the same medicine, we have seen the patient's tumors are reducing or completely gone. Then he used to, suggest us the alternative methods of research. Then we started working with the Reliance Life Sciences. We did some experiments with higher models in animal xenograft models, and innovatively, he has a great insight that what could be the approach of Ayurveda. And he used to apply his entire cell biology approach to Ayurveda's understanding, and then used to design the models of how or the experiments. And then he said that you guys talk about rasayan to be given for prevention. So why not to give these medicines to for these animals first, and start finding out whether it has any anti-cancer properties after inducing the inoculation or the induction of cancer cell lines. And we got the really dramatic results with Reliance Life Sciences. And we are fairly dependent on Department of Biotechnology. So whenever I have seen personally, whenever any committee from DBT or even DCGI is related with us, when they visit us, and they immediately get surprised that, Arey, Dr. Wagh. So immediately I have seen that people used to stand up in front of him, and the amount of respect what Dr. Wagh used to get in those meetings. And obviously, हमारी collar tat हो जाती थी उस time that Dr. Wagh is with us. So it was, those were n number of millions of moments we lived with him, and he used to understand how this Ayurveda's approach of reverse pharmacology, and used to guide us for the designing of the various experiments. We have a saying in Ayurveda, how the scientists, or to whom you should listen. Actually, it is considered as apta. By the way, Dr. Wagh has been felicitated on Rishi Panchami as a Rishi. This is been by Pune Mahanagar Palika, which may be the tiny thing for him. But for us, it was a big thing, because to getting the title of Rishi in Pune was very, very important for that organization. And in Charak Samhita, which is the first text of physicians, it is mentioned that how the guru or the apta should be. There the qualities mentioned that rajas tamobhyam nirmuktaha tapodhnana balena ye yesham trikalam amalam jnanam avyahatam sada aptaha shishta vibuddhaha te tesham vakyam asamshayam satyam vakshamti te kasmat asatyam nirajastamaha. This is the Charak Sutrastha, means that the apta, and I have seen this Sanskrit definition we used to learn since years together, since our first year, and I have seen the exact translation of these things in Dr. Wagh's personality, that he was free from Raja and Tama. Raja and Tama was considered as the doshas of mind. Only the one Sattva is considered as a guna of mind. Rajas tamobhyam tau dosho manasya tau dosho. So he is free from Raja and Tama. He has got the extreme tapa and jnana on the strength, based on the strengths of jnana and tapa. He has become free from Raja and Tama. He used to get the jnana from whatever happened in the science in the past, what is happening currently, and what can happen in science. So he has got the Trikala Jnanam Sada. Aptaha, Shishtaha, Vibuddhaha. Vibuddha is a very specific word. These are eminent personalities. So they are Shishta, eminent personalities, and they are Vibuddha, what can be understood through our intellect, and with the help of other equipments, they can understand, they can grasp these things. Their statement should be taken as it is, and should not be looked with the samshaya, or it should be taken as a granted. They should speak always satyam, vakshanti, kasmat ajastam. Since they are free from Raja and Tama, they always speak truth and nothing else than the truth in science. So I have seen Dr. Wagh always with us with these kind of things. And whenever we and our team, myself and our team get disturbed with the remarks of our committee members or our regulators, he was the one always ahead to, pump up our, boost our confidence that no, it is mentioned in Ayurveda, so it should work, and this is the way how you should take it further. So, and since you have the results in humans, you should consider it, you should make it fit in the current understanding of science. So when I met Dr. Arundhati used to be in touch with me for Dr. Wagh's illness every now and then. And when I realized that he stopped eating, especially after his wife's sad demise, I could feel, and all the time, whenever they used to visit, both of them used to visit our clinic quite regularly, and I could see there was an extreme bond between both of them. So when Mrs. Wagh passed away, when I talked with her, I could see that he has completely shattered from inside. He stopped eating. He started, talking like of liberation and things of the kind. So I went to meet him that day. And when I met him, Dr. Arundhati was telling him he is not able to sleep. He is not eating anything. He is not drinking anything. The moment I reached there, he started talking about Ayurveda. Now, how the Ayurveda is to be taken. You should do these things. You should that. Arundhati was stunned that this person was not able to talk. He was in acute depression kind of thing. And now almost 1 hour without oxygen, he was like nothing has happened. So this is such a great devotion towards science, towards commitment. I have seen, which I was about to cry, and that those particular words, without his permission, I could see as a doctor that I'm not going to listen this voice again. So I have recorded his last voice. It is with me for my personal records, and I could see that this is all going to be all time in my life, in my mind and brain, that how one should dedicate his life towards the development of science for the benefit of humanity. So obviously it's more than 15 years to our togetherness was there. This vacuum is going to be all along for rest of our life. And I request all Dr. Wagh students on behalf of him that in whatever capacity, in whatever institute you are working, if at all, if anything comes for you for Ayurveda, please try to help Ayurveda or Ayurvedic students or any project. We are always there. We would always love to have your guidance for taking Ayurveda ahead. But this is my humble request, and thank you again for the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yogesh, for sharing your one dimension of Dr. Wagh, which very few of us know. And would I love to hear his recording? I'm sure we'll get a chance to hear him because you may not be ready now. But thank you so much, this thing. Now, may I request the architect of the NCCS or NFATCC, Shirish Beri, to say a few words. Dr. Shirish Beri.
Thank you. I'm not a doctor, I'm an architect. And thank you for having me here. I remember my first meeting with Dr. Wagh was in a small office space in the zoology department of the University of Pune over 30 years back. Actually, this discussion was about creation of a national level facility for animal tissue and cell culture. It was a very important meeting. And at this meeting happened in a normal, very ordinary office space it was not even in a well-appointed cabin. And this unassuming simplicity was typically Dr. Wagh. What brought us closer together to each other were our shared values in life, rather than our professional relationship as an architect and client. Of course, these shared values in life did help to strengthen our professional relationship also. When we started doing the initial preliminary sketches for the institute, Dr. Wagh was keen that we visit some of the existing facilities in the country. So we traveled together to IMTech Chandigarh, to Indian Institute of Immunology Delhi, to CCMB Hyderabad, and some other places. And after the day-long visit, we would return to our room and then analyze and discuss the pros and cons in the design of that institute, and try to arrive at what NCCS would have or would like to have. So but soon the dialogue would veer towards life, towards the relevance of what we have been doing to the quality of our lives, and so on. Like we would discuss education, science, art, parenting, politics, war, and so many subjects. We both realized that our lives and our life decisions therein were based on certain shared values, such as compassion, honesty, integrity, simplicity, and that feeling of oneness with everyone and everything around us. When we started designing the campus, both of us agreed that an informal interaction space for the scientists would be very good, would help in doing good research. So if you remember the first phase of NCCS, we had the two labs on both the sides, and in the center we had the arrival space, which was the interaction space where scientists from both the wings would come and meet and interact. Unfortunately, this space, a beautiful space which flowed onto the open air theatre and the hill on the back, was converted into typical government offices in the later years. And even the beautiful amphitheatre which we had designed was hardly used for that purpose. That's why I only wish that Dr. Wagh was the director of the institute for 10 more years after the institute started functioning. But unfortunately, he had to retire very soon. And during this process of designing and construction, so many hurdles used to come our way. And if Dr. Wagh felt that something was in the interest of the institute, was good for the institute, and it was not according to the government norms or stipulations, even then he would ask us to go ahead. He says, you go ahead, I will see what to do. And he had that conviction and that belief in himself to get this thing passed from the government, because it was ultimately in the interest of the institute. Whenever I used to come for my site visits during the construction of the project, he would invariably be present for the meetings, site meetings. He would be present on the site because it was quite a tedious thing to walk all around and, with me giving instructions to the contractors to deliver better quality of work and all that. He always used to be there. After he retired, NCCS did a lot of expansions and building activity. But none of the directors ever came with me for the site visit. They would sit in the room and discuss. And there I felt this difference, this intensity of involvement which Dr. Wagh had, or this passion which he had, which didn't happen later. Then another thing I noticed in him was he had that childlike sense of wonder and admiration. Like just a year back, when I sent him a copy of my book as a complimentary copy of my book, Wanderings and Ponderings, my recent book, he was so happy to see it, so elated, that he called me and said, no, this book has to reach many people and this and that. He ordered 10 copies and he gave me 10 addresses of his close friends to whom I should courier that book. And I did that and I got good responses from them also for that book. But this is what Dr. Wagh was. He went beyond his mundane daily routine, and he wanted to add value to this life. Not only through architecture, through literature, through art, through science, and so many things. So, and even at the age of 90, his enthusiasm and zest for life was alive. This age difference of about 20 years between him and me was never felt by either of us. And today, his presence would always be felt. His presence would always be missed, and his absence would always be felt. Thank you for having me with all friends of Dr. Wagh.
Thank you, Shirish Beri. I fully appreciate the sentiments you have, because architect puts his heart very much like a scientist puts his heart. And I'm sure sitting with Wagh, you both had worked out some grand dream of what
Yes.
a lab should be.
Yes.
But it is very unfortunate sometimes that the successors don't appreciate the thought behind it. Probably it also reflects on, probably they didn't come with that kind of background to begin.
Yes.
They must
Yes.
have been in some other field that they are not able to. This thing, so this has happened. I remember Dr. Ramachandran also, whatever he did not continue after he left DBT. So I remember, that it's very difficult for, as you rightly said, if we had stayed 10 more years, the institute would have looked something of a masterpiece to come.
Sure.
Luckily, people like Homi J. Baba were very lucky to visualize an institution like the AFR like that. And I'm sure Dr. Wagh had the same, but that is life, what to do. But thank you so much for sharing this thing. Now, can I request Jyoti Kode, Dr. Jyoti Kode, to say a few words of her interaction? Yes.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dr. Kannan, for having me here. And it was really nice to, we are all coming together and commemorating Dr. Wagh's contributions. I remember whatever I am today now, I mean, many of have, including Dr. Bhonde, Dr. Padma Shastri, Dr. Anand, they all have mentioned that our base, the foundation of how to even set up a tissue culture laboratory. It has started and it is so much well inculcated in us that when I, take up trainees and they actually get surprised that I've come for such an advanced institute as Attract, and my mentor is starting, you first learn how to set up a tissue culture laboratory, because unless you know how to have your lab perfect, how your lab setup perfect, how to control contamination, then only you can actually conduct your assays, because then your cells will be perfect. So I remember, and I'm again proud that I'm the first batch student of MSc Biotechnology where that NFATCC was started. So I remember the course was so well designed that, it was like complete knowledge. the complete base or foundation of this tissue culture. And as Dr. Kannan has really, or maybe some more have said, that he's a father of tissue culture in India. We can really, actually underline that 10 times. That all that knowledge what I got from there, and also from Cancer Research Institute, but the main base was from animal tissue culture. It was my specialization, animal tissue culture. And Dr. Wagh was my mentor there for that MSc lab dissertation also. So we had two dissertations. One was as a summer trainee in Cancer Research Institute, now which is at Tata Memorial Center, and that time. But as a MSc actual syllabus, there was additional dissertation, and Dr. Wagh mentored that for me. And he made me grow tissue culture, zero cell line. That's a monkey kidney cell line. But I remember he used to be so very particular about those 4-ounce bottles, 2-ounce bottles. So my training was actually started with those, what is 4-ounce and what is 2-ounce bottle is what I first started learning. Then exactly I know how the bottle has to be clean or, with a chromium treated. So there my base got really firm. Like first your flask have to be good, your entire tissue culture reagents, or even how you set up a lab. There has to be a, say, hood next to it, incubator, some microscope. I mean, everything has to be there. Then only a success story can go well. And I really feel whatever achievements I've been doing, it's all I can give credit to Dr. Wagh and also to Dr. Bhonde, because I think I've been associated with him again at different levels. Wherever he traveled, in whichever institute, I've been for some or the other reason has been associated with Bhonde sir. And another thing I would like to that someone mentioned how to even conduct workshops. Even I remember one workshop was conducted in that NFATCC, and I still proudly write. I mean, people feel, why are you writing that 4 decades old workshop? You were part of it. But I feel this is where I learned how to conduct a workshop, and I really get good feedbacks when we conduct tissue culture workshop, because it's all from basics and to the advanced. Advances are all available in net, but the basics and the firm foundation is not easily available. So I feel as a student of that, and later on how we have taken it further, and we feel proud that institute, like someone said that he wanted ATCC like facility here, and the NCCS is like this, and we are also a product of this NFATCC. We are still continuing the baton, I can say, and making cells or cultures available to others, and of course within our institute mainly, because it's a big task. And now when everybody is spoken, I know, I mean, after MSc maybe I didn't come in contact with him much, but as his a student, Dr. Bhonde, I've been always associated, and what they taught, I still remember those lectures and those notes. John Paul is the one book which I would say I should always have next to me. I think Dr. Bhonde will remember. I went searching for that, our CRI library. Where is John Paul? Where is John Paul? This is where it started, and I actually read each and every word. That is actually gave the start of this tissue culture laboratory. And Eddy was my colleague. Sudhir, now Dr. Sudhir is here. He was my colleague in the specialization. I think my journey has taken off from there, and it's all the great foundation of Dr. Wagh, I would say. We are doing good.
Thank you so much.
I really want to thank Dr. Kannan for this, that he got all these people together. Thank you, Dr. Kannan, for giving that.
Thank you so much. I think I could see that Dr. Wagh has been literally like the mother stem cells, who has produced so many stem cells who continued in animal tissue culture. And now we are going to hear Sudhir Prayaga to speak. Dr. Sudhir Das is an entrepreneur. He has a company in US, but he also has set up one in Kerala recently. And more from you, Dr. Sudhir Das. What is your training like?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kannan, for inviting me. I also want to thank all the earlier speakers who gave a good outline about the life and times of Dr. Wagh. My interaction with Dr. Wagh was limited during my MSc days. For those of you who don't know me, I was in the first batch of biotechnology at the Pune University. And during that time, I had lucky to have interaction with Dr. Wagh, especially during the second year where I was in the animal tissue culture specialization, and he was training us on cell culture. Although at that time, the cell culture lab was with a minimal facility, even then, some of those experiments were very impressive. One particular one I remember one is doing pipetting. At that time we thought, hey, what is this? It looks very silly, pipetting. What is there to learn? But now I realize the depth of that thinking behind that. Anyway, we had.
After this,
anyway, I'm not going too much into those, but for the limited time I have here, I just want to thank for all the opportunities I received and all the good directions and advices received from Dr. Wagh, and best for the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sudhi. Now, can I request Dr. Madhura to say a few words before I hand over to Anita after that, okay? Yeah. Madhura. Dr. Madhura, are you there? Dr. Madhura? Okay, in the meantime, I will ask Anita to say her interaction with Dr. Wagh. Then if Madhura joined, we'll ask her to speak. Yeah. She was there. Start, Anita. Over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So just like some of my friends here, my classmates, Eddy, Sudhir, Dr. Sudhir, Jyoti, I was also part of the first batch of the MSc Biotechs, and we all met Dr. Wagh, Bhonde sir, Chipunkar sir, all of them at the NFATCC, because right in front of us, the whole institute was founded. So it was really exciting for us to meet these scientists at that point of time. Later, then I went in for my Ph.D. At the NIV under the guidance of Dr. Kalyan Banerjee. And at that point of time, Dr. Banerjee did not have the recognition as a PhD guide for biotechnology. And so he sent me off to Dr. Wagh, saying that you request him to be the co-guide. And that's how I managed to complete my MPhil, thanks to Dr. Wagh's agreeing to be my co-guide and help me out in that slightly difficult situation. Then a few years later, after I completed my PhD, I suddenly met Dr. Wagh at under some occasion. I don't remember exactly. And at that point of time, sir realized that I was working on my own as a freelance, consultant to various industries and so on and so forth. And so he started giving me a whole lot of assignments. I actually worked on several assignments with Dr. Wagh, especially when he was the director of IRSHA. So he used to call me over and come, Anita, we have some work to do. And then he would call me over, and then I would, he would ask me to, refer to literature, do literature surveys on varied topics, such as clinical applications of stem cells, then, lab designing to the organization of tissue culture labs, stem cells, and everything about stem cells. So many different topics I worked with him, and I used to create all the reports, gather the references, create reports, create project proposals for him, project work plans, and so on and so forth. So it was all exciting, and I don't know how much I learned from him. Apart from that, the last project that I also would like to share, that he was working with some company on omega-3 fatty acids, and that had caught he was fascinated by it, and it was so infectious. He called me over, and together between us, we created a huge document, some 70-80 pages on omega-3 fatty acids and their applications and the effect they have on the human body. So that was one fascinating work that I did with him. Later, the last project I did was with Dr. Yogesh Bendale's Rasaini, where I was working with sir, and we worked towards this elucidation of the mechanisms of how Ayurvedic drugs work with the help of cell lines. So sir had made me again write so much about all those things, and I cannot tell you in words how much and what all I learned from sir. I absolutely know it's not just about science. It's about a great leader. I saw a visionary. I saw how he was able to pull people together. In fact, he had made me a scribe for a very unique and very big meeting where all eminent scientists had collected at Isha, and it was to do with I think evidence-based medicine, and you name it, and that scientist was there in that meeting. Bhonde sir was also there. So I remember that meeting, and I remember I had to collect all the data about the meeting and give him a report. So varied types of things I did. So I saw a visionary. I saw a person who had the ability to create. He wanted to build, and at the same time, he was always a humble person, a very genuine, humble person, and his enthusiasm is something I'll never forget in my life. The enthusiasm and his eyes used to just shine with that passion for science. So I have lots and lots of memories of working with sir, and I'm really happy to to hear so much about him, and it's really a great life that he led, and something that has really inspired me all through. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving me these.
Thank you, Anita, showing us how he knew whom to tap for what. I think you precisely said that. I think it's a great quality in him. Now you're going to hear a speaker who has not directly been associated with Dr. Wagh, but the facility he has created, how beautifully she has used. So over to Dr. Bhavna Muralidharan, who is Wellcome Trust DBT Intermediary Fellow at INSTEM. So over to you, Dr. Bhavna, who did Ph.D. from NCCS. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kannan sir. Thanks a lot for organizing this memorial meeting. It was so nice to hear Professor Bhonde, Professor Padma Shastri, Dr. Anand Hardikar speak and recollect some of their memories of their association with Professor Wagh. As Kannan sir said, I have not directly interacted with him. I did my PhD from NCCS under Dr. Vasudevan Sheshadri. But I think I'm one of the many beneficiaries of what he set up as a wonderful founding institute as NFATCC, which then went on to become NCCS Pune. Because many times the ethos with which you start an institute stays forever, and it percolates into the many branches which come out from there. People like me who go on to set up labs in India and abroad. So I think I'm thankful to Professor Wagh for that, and also, of course, my own mentor at NCCS Pune. So thanks a lot. I just have this to say.
Thank you, Bhavna. I think it's nice to hear that what a facility means. He left a legacy behind which others could take benefit of. I think. Thank you so much, Bhavna.
We can take Madhura, sir. We can take Madhura Vipra.
Madhura has come back.
Yes, sorry, I think.
Okay, Madhura. Yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm sorry about it. Thanks for this opportunity. So we're all just hearing great stories about a visionary, a great scientist, and noble personality, Dr. Wagh sir. And what we heard still is the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure all of us have many more memories and anecdotes to share. And there are so many others who probably are not there today would have the same experience with him. Today, I will talk about what I experienced with him. I first came in contact with Dr. Wagh in 1990 when NFATCC had just begun. And I remember vividly how he conducted the very first session for us for HNE training in his director's room. So director of a national facility of cell culture was actually conducting sessions for the junior most members of his team. And he was calling us all as his colleagues. I think that was one of the first lessons that I learned, that, a person who's at such a high position and the respect he can give to others and how good he makes others feel about it. That's where I think began a very inspiring journey for me, taking me to places, and imaging and image analysis has always been at the core of my heart. Today, I realize in the age of startup, when I myself run my own precision medicine company, Dr. Wagh was the pioneer of translational science in India, as we call it now, and actually has contributed great to today's science in India. I want to share two memories out of many I have. Once I got some insect in my eye, and as I was driving to work, and I bumped into sir. Sir saw a red eye and asked me what happened. तर मी म्हटलं किडा गेला डोळ्यात. Next instant he said, डोळ्यातच गेलाय ना, डोक्यात किडे जाऊ देऊ नका. It took me also a couple of seconds, but that sentence came so apt. Like it was a lesson I think I learned. Always would I remember, ki डोक्यात किडे जाऊ देऊ नको या. That is what matters in life. That's how relationships can be maintained. Another incident I remember is that once I was told that Dr. Wagh has called me in his cabin. So I rushed there. And the moment I entered there, I saw another gentleman sitting with him. Instinctively, I took my hands behind because I had got engaged just the earlier day. And I didn't want to show my mehndi, and I didn't just feel very awkward there. And that twinkle in his eyes now, I could clearly see where Dr. Wagh was eventually going to lead. So he said, he introduced us. It was Dr. Gupta from CCMB. And he said, any idea why she is hiding her hands behind her? So Dr. Gupta got I think they were on the same page. So he got that idea. And he said, no, I don't know. Like, what is the reason? So Wagh sir mala manale, why don't you only tell, what is the reason? It was such an awkward moment for me. Two very senior scientists sitting in front of me. They were my bosses. And so I had to, I was blushing also probably. And they made such a hearty laugh. And then, they were really enjoying that moment. But both of them congratulated me. I think that memory brings in smile even today, after all these 30 years, every time I think about it. Another memory is, I happened to bump into him at Bhandarkar Road, Delhi. It was recently 2010. And he asked me, what am I doing? I said, I am developing a software for flow cytometry for BD Biosciences. So he said, okay. And then he said, he's looking at my hands. माझ्या हातात खरवस होता घेतलेला. Sane dairy madla. He said, this is colostrum, right? I said, yes. Now I realize again it's going somewhere. So how about doing some, flow cytometry analysis of this, and let's see what will be fine. I said, okay, sir. म्हणजे इतक्या वर्षांनी भेटल्यानंतर सुद्धा पहिला response त्यांचा, it was some scientific response. It was always science for him. He always would think about science, and his wit, his sense of humor, which already many people have talked about, it's something I would always remember. I learned a lot. He told me when he sent me to CCMB, टिप कागदासारखं सगळं शोषून घ्या. बाहेरचं सगळं ज्ञान तुम्ही शोषून घ्या. That will be helpful to you. असे छोटे छोटे tips दिलेत. I think, where I am today, a lot of credit goes to, this earlier career span that is spent in NFATCC. And, he could give still a lot of attention to us even when he was so busy. And he was so physically active that walking from Jopasna to Jidnasa used to be a nightmare. I literally had to run to catch a pace with him. And I was 22. And still I had to run, and he would walk fast. And while walking, he would talk also. So there are so many pleasant memories of Wagh sir. I met him around few years back, but recently I didn't get a chance to meet him. I sometimes feel that I wish, I could probably have gone and meet him, but anyways, I've lost that opportunity. But I'm very happy that Dr. Bhonde and Dr. Kannan, you made me part of this gathering today, where we heard some wonderful stories, and I could share some of mine too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madhura. Very kind of you. Now, Tanaya will, I'm told, the niece of Dr. Wagh, grandniece probably, will now speak on behalf of the family. So, Tanaya, over to you.
Hi, everyone. So, as Dr. Karan just said, I'm Tanaya. I'm Ashwin's daughter and Dr. Wagh's youngest granddaughter. So, I'm here to speak on behalf of the family and share our thoughts. So, first of all, of course, we would like to thank everyone involved in organizing this event, especially Dr. Kannan, and all of my grandfather's colleagues and friends for taking the time to remember and share your personal experiences and journey with him over the years. This really means a lot to our family, and we do feel very emotionally supported and happy after listening to all the wonderful things that you guys have said about him. All of you spoke about his dedication and passion for the Institute, his research, and your collaborative projects, but we wanted to shed some insight on his personal life and who he was outside of his work. So Baba, or Bana as our family called him, was very passionate about photography. He had a Minolta SR7, and during his MSc research days, he used to painstakingly develop his own photographs in the darkroom. He also liked carpentry and had a lathe and various other tools for intricate carving. He enjoyed playing chess and table tennis, and unlike his gentle demeanor on the table tennis court, he was always on the offensive, and you really had to watch out for his backhand shots. He was absent-minded too, and every morning my grandmother used to remind him to not close the front door when he left for work because she knew he'd always forget something or the other. He did, however, have an exceptionally high IQ, and he tolerated all of my siblings for years. He never got angry at them. He never raised his voice. He also never forced them down a certain path and always encouraged them to pursue their own ambitions and dreams. After his official retirement, my grandpa remained dedicated and committed to his work, but always tried to help my grandmother command the kitchen, though somehow only managing to create more work for her. He really enjoyed going to the market to shop, and he loved to fish, a love that was only second to his beloved better half, our Kundama, who sadly also passed away a few weeks earlier. He also relished in shopping for artifacts, and over his many years, he collected a plethora of souvenirs from all of his travels, and he could tell you in great detail about each piece. He never paid heed to money or fame, and despite his many accomplishments, he was never in pursuit of any recognition or accolades. His only goal was to facilitate research and do what he could to promote science. And I think all of you showing up today and honoring him and his work is a true testament to how committed he was to that goal. Although he's no longer with us anymore, he's left behind so many rich and happy memories for his family, friends, and colleagues, which we will always remember and cherish. So that's what the family wanted to share, but I'd also like to say a few words about what my grandfather meant to me. So hearing all of you speak about Dr. Ulhas today, it's very touching, but it's also strange to me because for a long time, I didn't know that was his name because I only knew him as Bana, which is funny because I later learned from Kundama, my grandmother, that that was Bana's nickname for me. And to this day, I couldn't tell you what Bana meant, but I could tell you that Bana meant a lot to me. And I remember when I first found out that Bana was a scientist, I was so excited. And I couldn't wait to tell all my friends in primary school about his accomplishments. And I was so excited to tell all of them that he was a scientist because I was so proud of him. But Bana was very modest about his career. Anytime I would ask him about any of his accomplishments, he would very subtly redirect me to one of his many artifacts. And looking back, I think his humility is what I most admired about him. He was such a prominent name in science and in Pune. He never let it get to his head. He let his work speak for him instead. Bana was also probably the kindest person I knew, with the calmest temperament. And in my 20 years, I've never seen him get angry or worked up over anything, which is a sentiment that I try to apply in my own life when I feel overwhelmed or stressed. And I think perhaps one of my fondest memories with Bana was back and forth emails that we would exchange when I was younger and how detailed his responses were. Even though I was only 10 or 11 at the time, Bana spoke to me like he would an adult, which is something I really valued and will always value, along with the many other memories that we share. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for sharing another dimension of your grandfather. I think it was very nice of you. Anybody in the audience would like to say a few words? The floor is open for whom I missed out probably.
I think our technician Pawar was there, but I don't know whether.
Rajendra wanted to speak. Rajendra.
Hello.
Rajendra is there.
Hello, can I say a couple of words?
Yeah, please do. Please
I'm
do.
Medha Rajadikshan.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm distantly related to the family. He was my father's cousin, and I grew up in Delhi. And every time we came to Pune, which we did every year, my father would take me to meet him. And when I was in 11th standard, that was 11 that time, and wanted to make a career choice, I met Dr. Wagh that time. I had known him as my uncle only, and I did not know him as a scientist. But he spent good half an hour taking me around at NIV. And I think that helped me decide that I also wanted to get into science. Later, I did my PhD at BARC. I was in Bombay for a long time and have been in Bombay. With all other pressing matters, I could not have a full-fledged career in research. And I regretted that, so I had got into teaching. So when I went to meet him, he said, why? There is so much to do in education. And I think that one simple sentence has been my leading light through my career. So Arundhati, I have not met you. And in fact, I have not met the other family members. I only met my Kaka and Kaki a couple of times. Thank you for the influence you had on my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Medha, for sharing your thoughts. Anyone else?
Yeah, so as, hi, this is Rajendra Damle. I think some of you
lovely.
here know me. I know Dr. Bhonde, I know Dr. Mrs. Bhise and Jyoti, who asked me to speak. Hello, Dr. Bhise. Hello, Dr. Bhonde and everyone. And hi, Madhura. So I'm here to just share a few quick memories with Dr. Wagh. I took up my first job at Pune after I graduated from Bombay, and my mentor, Dr. Sudha Gangal, knew Dr. Wagh very well. So when I interviewed at Pune, she was not aware that I was interviewing there, and lo and behold, I was interviewed at Pune for the job at NFATCC. Dr. Wagh was the director at that time. And when I mentioned this to Dr. Gangal, she felt like, okay, this kid who graduated from my lab is going to be in good hands. And that's the feeling I'm going to share with you, because I mean, I didn't come prepared to say anything much here. But yes, I have been fortunate to be under the mentorship of Dr. Wagh and Dr. Gangal and Dr. Bhise, of course. Actually everyone here. And I would really take this opportunity to say that I'm looking at this podium as a way to network once again through a person we all knew. And I've known several of you since so many years, but Dr. Wagh was our common thread, and I think I just don't have words to express how important it was for all of us to have him in our life, and we're all going to miss him.
Thank you.
My best regards to his family, Arundhati, whom I know since my NFATCC days, and the rest of his family, and may God give you the strength. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to speak? So I just would like to read out some of the messages, which were sent. One was from Dr. Surendra Ghaskadbi. Dr. Wagh was the one on the selection committee that selected me for a position at MACS ARI, Agarkar Research Institute, in 1985. I'm still at the same place, and I've interacted with Dr. Wagh throughout my career. Such a humble leader and a thorough gentleman. In fact, incidentally, Surendra Ghaskadbi's wife is Professor Saroj Ghaskadbi. And I'm sure both are great admirers of him. And thank you for being here. I know Surendra is right now in Dehradun or Mussoorie, I don't know. But nice of you to join.
But I'm here. Yeah, just
Okay.
came back from Mussoorie. What Saroj did not mention was that we often visited Dr. Wagh at his home in Eranvane. And, you know, the fish market used to be a common discussion because both of them used to like fish. So, I mean, you know, everybody has talked so nicely about him, which is completely true. In fact, nobody can really express how thorough a gentleman he was and how, what an insightful scientist and, you know, institute builder. Thank you, Dr. Kannan, for organizing this. Very nice of you.
No, it is my pleasure because I'm a great fan of his. So Anand Deshpande has written, I am Dr. Anand Deshpande. I had associated as in charge Dr. Wagh in TCCB at NIV under the ICMR malaria scheme as senior research fellow. So, you know, that shows that, you know, everybody recalled that particular moment because, you know, I'm just want to say, you know, when I see sometime like one of my son, I asked him, who is your most favorite teacher in MSc? He said, none. And I was shocked. I said, I can never believe because today when I hear Dr. Wagh about him, everybody saying, sometimes I'm worried. Have we, you know, we are missing such people today with that passion and commitment, I strongly feel. Anyone else would like to say anything? Feel free to say whatever you want to because, you know, time is no limit for us. So,
can we have something in his memory, some, you know, some auditorium or some facility, cell-culture facility?
okay, I think you have made a
His
very...
name is immortalized, kind of.
No, what we can do is, you know, something which Dr. Wagh enjoyed doing, like, for example, he loved to run workshops. He'd like to train youngsters. Myself and Dr. Bhonde have been discussing on this. That we can create a fund in his name and hopefully run workshops throughout India in his name. You know,
Dr. Kannan, 1 minute, that NCCS is also going to do something in memory of Dr. Wagh.
Okay.
They maybe constitute one fellowship for translational research, or maybe they level 1 lab as Dr. Wagh's lab or auditorium. Okay. Something is going on, yeah.
Oh, very good. No, but I'm saying there are so many admirers here. So I know we as a team who have been present here, whether we could contribute something in his memory, you know, to perpetuate that. That's all what, it's a suggestion I have.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
Dr. Kannan, I think knowing Dr. Wagh, he would not like any hall or auditorium to be named after him.
Right,
okay.
Correct.
But workshop and teaching tissue culture to people would be the
best way to do it. That's what I also felt. That's why I suggested.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's right.
I think I suggest that Surendra Ghaskadbi and Ramesh Bhonde can sit together, take opinion of all the members, and we'll come out with some strategy to support such an activity, so that you know, you know, I personally, you know, I was just telling Dr. Bhonde that my dream of NFATCC was any student should be able to go with an idea, use the facility, and publish a work. I know Dr. Wagh has helped a lot, but never put his name in those papers. He was never particular, and I think that is his greatest, you know, big mind. You know,
even he has not named the cell line after him. Otherwise, he could have done that. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that will be a greater tribute if we can help people to, you know, get into this, because with this COVID and other things, now we are suddenly realizing that epidemiology is an area picking up a new disease, new virus, new bacteria, new parasite, whatever it might be. I think a trained mind can help us to identify those kind of things. I think that will be a much better, it's a suggestion I have, I'm not that, but the committee is free. I request that if Surendra Ghaskadbi and Ramesh Bhonde can, you know, form a small team and look into this aspect, how in our own small way, it doesn't have to be anything very big, but we could do it so that the memory, the idea is perpetuated what he believed in. Okay. Now, can I request?
Sorry,
yeah,
this is,
sure.
yeah, this
Please
is
do, please
Sonia.
do.
Yeah, this is Sonia Wagh. So I'm daughter-in-law of, Dr.
Oh,
Wagh.
welcome. Sonia.
Obviously, when I got married, I didn't know. I mean, it's a new family to me. And, when we were newly married, he took us, he had just retired as a director of NCCS. So in 96, 97, he took me and my husband on a tour of, the great institute. And I realized what a great, imagine being in charge of this big institute and being a scientist. So what came to my mind is, it's a wrong choice as a daughter-in-law because I have left science at the age of 16. I never liked science, and I was thinking, oh my God, like what? I mean, there's such a vast. I mean, I was thinking, how can you connect to such a person and he to me? But what I would like to share with the team is his amazing meticulousness at home. I observed him and my mother-in-law, and I used to think, why do they bother hiring a helper or a bike? Because he used to clean the utensils so well that if you looked at them, it looked as if it's already washed. And then the other thing I remember is if you have read the newspaper, the way he folded, it's as if it's a brand newspaper. The folds were so perfect that you would feel that nobody has read the newspaper. But obviously, he did it so perfectly. And the other thing I always remember is no matter, even if you go to a 5-star or a 7-star hotel, the way he did the beds was even more perfect than what you would ever find in the best of hotels. So his perfectly, I mean, I think you all talk about his excellence in scientific world, but he was equally perfect at home. And I was thinking there is no point in competing or trying to do, because I thought you can never reach that level, the way he does the beds or anything like that. So all you do is just you watch how he does, how he has done, and then just admire, because that's my memory. And also his love for food. He loved to sample variety of food, whether it's vegetarian or non-veg, and his passion about food. And I think he was very lucky that his wife was equally passionate, so he could, he got the best of food, obviously, and the variety. So I think they were very fortunate, both of them. Yeah.
I think I will like to say a few words before Anita takes over. He was the first man who appreciated a research which I did on hematopoiesis and linking stem cells with ubiquitin. And I used some of the techniques which he would be fond of. In the whole country, I published this paper in British Journal of Hematology. He was the only man who could appreciate what I did. I can tell you that even today. And the country, nobody ever invited me to give a talk on that ever. But what I'm so proud today is that work got better recognition abroad than ever I got. But Dr. Wagh was the only man who stood by and who was proud. See, wow, this is something I'm really proud of. I think he made you feel important. So I think such few people are good enough in life to make you feel good. And certainly Dr. Wagh belongs to that class of people who can see things which others can't see. So thank you so much, Dr. Wagh, for being part of us, and you will continue to inspire each one of us. And now I hand over to Anita to say the word of thanks. Yeah, Anita.
So, on behalf of all the organizers, I would like to thank each of you for sparing your time and being with us here today. It's been such an enriching journey, listening to all your experiences, to all the stories that you had to share about sir, which has shown us that he was such a multifaceted and wonderful personality who has inspired each and every person here. I'm sure that sir will continue to live in our hearts and we will remember him always, and he will continue to inspire each of us to continue on this journey of science. So thank you so much, and I wish the entire Wagh family and Arundhati's family as well well, and I hope that they can keep this whole shop within this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining at such short notice. And we look forward to meeting all of you at some point or the other. So, okay then, thank you. Good night and good morning to Hardikar, because I think it must be morning for him now. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
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 It's so ironic. When you were in Pune,